What's going on, guys? I hope you guys are having a fantastic week, day. So today was going to be really special. Today's one of my days off. I was really looking forward to sharing some recent pickups. I know I've been holding it off. I keep pushing it back, but it's got to be the right day. The day's got to be off to a good start. It's got to be a productive day, and I don't feel like today was one of those days. I got up late. I worked late last night. And then we had washing machine issues last night, which persisted into today. I probably lost half the day messing with my washing machine all day. Needless to say, it is fixed. We got some family time in still, and I had time to still make a video, but I just decided with everything happening today, I would rather get a fresh start tomorrow and do the big reveal tomorrow. I picked up an absolute grail of mine. It's not even a crazy expensive card. It means a lot to me. But anyways, that'll be tomorrow for sure. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. This is going to be the auctions of the week. Now, typically this is my auctions. I talk about cards that I'm selling, but I don't really have anything spicy or interesting that I'm selling. So I'm actually going to talk about some auctions that I was watching that I was considering buying. And maybe this will be a new series that I talk about. So for those of you that know me, you know that I love collecting gold stars. Gold stars are some of my favorite cards to collect. And while I have been looking at some cards that are not gold stars, there was somebody that recently made a deal with me on some cards that I don't have. I saw that they were unloading a lot of gold stars. Now, normally I would have gotten extremely excited over this, but most of my gold stars are PSA 9, and this seller was selling all their gold stars PSA 8. Now, still, there were some cards in this collection that was sold recently by Sunset Collectibles. Falling Sunset. Falling Sunset, all lowercase. Such a great name. Very memorable. Definitely check them out. They hooked me up on some cards. They had some incredible auctions recently, and they'll be listing even more cards for their growing family. Really cool guy. I can't wait to reveal some of the stuff that he's worked with me on. But these are some of the auctions that ended up selling on his Gold Star collection. He uploaded all of the Gold Stars, all the cards in his Gold Star collection all at once. A couple of them were offer up options, which I think I got really lucky on because I was able to snag those cards up and they were 9s. But most of the collection was 8s. And so this is really exciting, guys, because these are some of my favorite cards, and I love talking about them. So I'm going to save the best for last because, honestly, some of these sales are pretty insane. Okay, down here. Okay, so this will also be fun because it'll actually let you guys know. Even though I'm not buying stuff and I constantly, I get addicted to this stuff. I get addicted to the whole process of eBay and bidding, as I'm sure a lot of people do. But I never even thought about, well, what about all the stuff that you watch and that just ends and that you're just watching because it's just an interesting auction? Why not talk about that? So I'm still learning as I'm making more content, like what would be interesting to me, what would be helpful to me. Well, what would help me is knowing what other like-minded collectors would like to collect. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. So to start things off, I wanted to see what a PSA 6, and then we'll get into the gold stars, PSA 6 first edition Charizard recently sold for $56.55. So about $5,700 after tax. The person would probably be closer to $6,000. It looks like it's a fairly new cert. So the first edition Charizard is holding out really well. That's around the same price that it probably was a year ago. We got a CGC 9.5 first edition Charizard here that sold by Kanto Shark, which if you guys don't know Kanto Shark, they're one of the larger name sellers, I think, if not by the actual sales, because there's only 412 sales by this seller, Kanto Shark. I definitely know them in the community. I know that they collect and sell and middleman some very, very high-end cards. So that was interesting. A CGC 9.5 for $15,655. Pretty much almost the cost that you could get a PSA 9 for. I would honestly rather have a PSA 9 than a CGC 9.5. But beautiful card nonetheless. Okay, and then also, you guys know that I collect theme decks, that I love theme decks. And I will Hopefully I can back up. Yeah, I'll be able to back up. We found something similar. Okay, well, anyways, I just wanted to click on the image and show you guys. Many of you guys know that I collect theme decks, and this is one of my favorite theme decks that I like to collect. The legendary decks. I have a couple copies of them, but I don't have a sealed one. So that auction ended at about $500. Maybe it was $490. Oh, what's going on with my computer now? I shouldn't have left my watched items. I definitely should not have. Okay, you know what? That's all good. Having a technical difficulty that probably has nothing to do with our Wi-Fi. It's just this computer being weird. All right, let's go back into my eBay. We go back into the watch list and see what I was looking at. Let's click on that. Bear with me, guys. Great. Okay, back on track. Sorry about that, guys. And I appreciate you. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that legendary deck you guys sold for $490, which was by no means really a really great deal on that deck, but it was something that I really wanted for my collection. So honestly, between the gold stars and that deck, I really wanted to win that deck. I just was busy doing work, and sometimes my work life actually keeps me from being able to purchase and win auctions on stuff that I honestly really want. Okay. Wow, this video is going to look weird. It's going to look like I'm not continuing the trend of keeping the chains out, whatever. Okay. Lattos Gold Star PSA 8. So this one sold for $13.50. Guys, $13.50 is a really, really good price for a PSA 8 Lattos. The last sold, I think, was $1,600 on that. And a PSA 9 can sell for anywhere from $2,800 to $3,200. So I think the $13.50 for an 8 was a pretty good price. Same thing here with the Lattos. They got it for $11.89. Pretty good price. By no means is it an incredible price. It's about around the price that 8s sell for. For me, and this isn't necessarily true, but a good rule of thumb is usually an 8 is about half the cost of the 9s. And sometimes that's the case with the 9s to the 10s. I know there's quite the exponential value rise from a 9 to 10, but from 8 to 9, it kind of works that way. For instance, PSA 8 Rayquaza had a really nice swirl too. That ended at $4,900. So that typically ended, I think, in an auction recently at $5,100. So they got a little bit of a deal on it. But I kind of look at these auctions, and what the 8s are doing is telling me a little bit about what I think the 9s are going to end up doing. So if this Rayquaza Gold Star PSA 8 sold for $4,900, I double that number, and in my head, I get almost $10,000. So I get $9,800. So $9,800 is a kind of a new number in my head, and I'm like, for a while there, I thought, Gold Star Rayquaza is around, very high 7s to $8,000 range, 8 point something. But this recent sale is pretty crazy, guys, and it's kind of either this is going to be a fluke thing, and we're not going to see a lot of, people overpaying on cards like this, or more people are getting into the hobby and they're willing to pay whatever to get these cards. So that's very interesting to me. Very successful auctions for Falling Sunset. Very successful. Okay, let's look at Groudon. Groudon, one of my favorite gold stars, looks awesome. EX Delta species. This went for $755. Now, I think that's a decent bit. I think that's almost over $100 more than the last 8 sold for. And this is kind of crazy when we're talking about 8s. Seeing a swing like that of $100 or more. And of course, PSA 9 Groudon worth more like $1,000 to $1,200. So if you cut that in half, I think a PSA 8 should be worth more around $600. And some of them sell for around that price range. This went way over that with $755 for a PSA 8. The person could have just looked a little bit longer and probably found a 9 for a little bit more. Even bought it privately and got a really good deal. I don't think a lot of these auctions that were won, I don't think these were great purchases. but these are very iconic cards, and I would say maybe in a year or even a couple of months, these could look like good purchases because the prices are just exponentially rising. But this is great news because even though they're 8s, that market affects the 9 market directly, right? All these markets are connected with each other. So we're seeing 8s go for all-time highs. Either that means that people are they're topped out trying to shop for 9s. They're just burnt out trying to get 9s, or the 8s have gone up in price, and now the 9s subsequently will go up in price and become a lot scarcer. So we've got Kyogre here, went for $747. Kyogre, I feel like that's pretty high for PSA 8, but I think that was actually pretty in line with the market for Kyogre. Looks like Groudon was actually selling for a little bit less than an 8. PSA 8 Metagross, 780. 780 for PSA 8. You could probably get a PSA 9 for around maybe 11 or 1200. So I'd say a PSA 8 really should be worth around 600 or 700. So 780 is pretty high up there. And I think that was more than what the last sold was. This one was really interesting. The Reggie Rock Gold Star Holo. This one definitely went over market. I want to say this is like mid 400s max for a PSA 8 Reggie Rock. This PSA 8 Reggie Rock went for $580, almost $600, which is getting very close to the price of a 9. You can get a Reggie Rock right now on the market for $700. So it's kind of ridiculous that this person didn't want to spend another $120 and just go opt for the 9. But I guess coming from all the same collector kind of was the goal here. Okay, it's gonna get saucier, guys. We go down to the bottom here. This next one really shocked me, honestly. I think that this card got a disservice with its bidding. But PSA 8 Reggie Steel, which is my favorite of the Reggies. PSA 8 Reggie Steel sold for a whopping $387. Guys, that's cheap. That's cheap for a Reggie Steel, honestly. And it is pretty much in line, though. PSA 9 would go for around 600. That's what I got mine for. You cut that in half, you're at 300. 387 probably might even be a little bit high, but compared to the last solds on that Reggie Steel, that's actually on the lower end. So they got a good deal, whoever got the Reggie Steel. I did ask about some of these cards at the end of the auction because I let the seller know if anybody doesn't pull through, let me know because I'm still interested in these cards and I'll make a deal with you if somebody else doesn't honor paying for them. It happens all the time. It's great to not get so wrapped up in an auction, which I get wrapped up in auctions all the time, and I feel obligated to go higher to get the card that I want, even though the reality is there are so many people defaulting on auctions and not paying for their auctions that sometimes it's better to just relax, say to yourself, you know what, I didn't spend all that money, I should feel good right now, and just take a break from it. And you never know, sometimes sellers reach back out or you get a second chance offer and somebody doesn't pay that top dollar price. It happens all the time. So don't FOMO into auctions like good old Orion. Okay, PSA 9 Pikachu. This one pretty much sold right where it needed to sell. He's got some 8s. He's got a majority 8s, and he's got some 9s as well. But this one sold for $2,300. And even that, honestly, probably is a little bit low. We've had some $2,500 sales. We've had some higher sales, $2,700, $2,800. But $2,300 is kind of right in line with market, I think. That's what I got for mine. So I'm pretty happy that at least it fell on that. And then somebody would have to pay tax, or they would vault it and pay $50 to get it out. It is an old cert. Not really a big deal. The old certs actually look kind of cool. But it's just nice when you get cards with updated certs. Okay, PSA 8 Alakazam Gold Star, 565. So the Alakazam went for I think it went for pretty much market on Alakazam. So somebody may have gotten a decent deal on that. And in PSA 9, Alakazam Gold Star, in my opinion, is worth $700 or $800. People have them listed for $1,000, maybe $1,200, but $700 or $800 is a max that I would pay on a PSA 9 Gold Star Alakazam. And so you cut that in half and you get $350 to $400, I think is what a PSA 8 is probably really more worth. Again, guys, this is just kind of doing stuff off the top of my head, just thinking about 9s in comparison to 8s. and kind of the correlation to these grades and how they jump in price. But typically from 8 to 9, it's about double the value. But that's not fact. That's just me saying a lot of the cases, an 8 goes for half the price of a 9. So I'm going off of the limited information that I have and experiences that I've experienced. PSA 9 Celebi. So PSA 9 Celebi, and I want to say that there was an Alakazam PSA 8 Gold Star that sold for like high 7s recently. Maybe like 770, I want to say, or maybe 800. But, okay, Celebi, PSA 9 Celebi recently sold for 700 or a little bit less than 700. So I'd put it at about 350 to 400 for an 8. This 8 sold for 456. And then the Charizard Gold Star PSA 8, that one sold for about market, maybe even a little bit less than market, but it went for $22.75. There's no real surprises there. A lot of people have their PSA 9s listed for $4,600, which you cut that in half and you get the $2,300 that one went for. I personally would not want to pay anything more than $3,700 for a Gold Star Charizard. That's what I think. That's what I think it would go for if somebody put it up and they were trying to sell it quickly and they were willing to accept an offer like that. I think that's an offer that I would be willing to make. I think a lot of times with auctions, stuff ends up going for more than it should because of the addictive nature of auctions and because people don't know any better and people get roped into feelings of FOMO. Okay. Flareon, Gold Star, and this one's kind of in line because these Gold Star EV evolutions are starting to trickle up a little bit. My friend recently got one, I think, for $880 or $850. So that being said, let's say $425 is around where I think Flareon PSA 8 should be as far as Gold Stars. It's an old cert. It went for $482. I think that's pretty in line with market. And then this PSA 9 Jolteon Gold Star, I recently got mine for $750. Then I also had to extract it from the vault. I think that was like another 30 or maybe it was just 50 again. So I think I was in at 800. They paid 880, so a good bit. Without even, sending it to the vault or paying sales tax, 880 is pretty high on Jolteon, I think. So now Jolteon is pushing 900. Flareon's pushing 900. Vaporeon's already passed 1,000. I think I know there's some sales right under 1,000, but that means Flareon has been usually a little more expensive than them. So Flareon's probably going to creep up there a little bit. And there was a PSA 8 Vaporeon. Vaporeon is going to creep up a little bit as opposed to Flareon and Jolteon because Vaporeon is a little more expensive than Flareon and Jolteon. So I would not be surprised if we saw a sale for a PSA 9 Vaporeon Gold Star go for around $1,100 or $1,200 in the coming months. PSA 8 Vaporeon, though, speaking of, if we cut the price of recent solds out and we say 1,000, we split that in half, about 500 is what I think a PSA 8 Vaporeon is worth. This one was sold with a crack in the slab and an old cert for 560. I think that says a lot about this market. These prices, okay. And last but not least, some of the most iconic Gold Stars of all time, arguably not really, I think, a fan favorite. I think they're just very rare and very sought after, but I don't think that they're really a fan favorite. We have the Espeon and the Umbreon Pop Series non-holo Gold Star cards, right? They are non-holo, so there's nothing really flashy about the cards, but they are very rare, very popular. I know I didn't click on photos of all of these for the sake of not losing my little list right here. I've got both the Espeon. Hopefully you guys can see that semi-clearly. There's the Espeon, and there is the Umbreon. And I'll probably blow that up after this because these are the last ones that I'm going to talk about. And these cards are pretty insane in terms of their price. Those of you that just caught the price, you already know the price. But PSA 8 Espeon sold for $2,800, guys. $2,800. Like, these prices are getting very close to PSA 9 prices, in my opinion. I think this is like going to be kind of a fluke thing. It's hard for me to believe that with Pokemon, in my opinion, simmering down a little bit, and people spending a little bit less money, it seems like there's maybe just new collectors coming to the hobby that are just spending these buku bucks, or these cards are going to be up for sale on eBay very soon because a seller has picked them up and is planning to flip them for more. So that'll be interesting to see. I think if somebody did pick these up and they're trying to flip them, they're going to get caught holding a bag for a while. But that was interesting to see. $2,800 for Espeon. I put in a bid of like $1,800. So, you know, for me, I think Espeon in a PSA 9 is probably worth more around like $3,500, maybe $4,000. So you cut that in half and you get around $1,700 to $2,000. Maybe even $2,000 was like a top bid for me. But $2,800 for a PSA 8 Espeon Gold Star, that just seemed wild. And what's more is I asked about these two cards, the Umbreon and the Espeon. I asked about these specifically, and they were paid for immediately. So whoever won these cards paid for them immediately. Wasn't trying to waste anybody's time or theirs. Okay, last but not least, the PSA 8 Pop Series 5-pack non-holo Umbreon Gold Star. Now, I put in a pretty aggressive bid at $2,500, and I feel like $2,500 was a really fair bid for an 8. I feel like this card is worth around $5,000 or $6,000. The market might show you otherwise. There's one listed for around $7,000, but I think that they're really worth around $5,000 or $6,000. You cut that in half for an 8, and you get around $2,500 to $3,000, which was really $3,000 was, you know, $2,500. I think was where I was initially like, this is a strong price. If I win this card, this will be a cool thing to have in my collection. But $3,000, I think, was the absolute last straw for me. This card almost sold for $4,000 at a whopping $3,938. Wild. Absolutely wild. That sale is definitely going to help other sellers trying to sell these cards in higher grades or even sell their 8s. This is definitely either going to get overlooked, or every seller is going to point to these sales when they're selling cards like this and say, hey, look, man, these things are on the come up. These last sold for all-time highs, right? These two cards together almost equal $7,000 for two non-holo Pop Series cards. It's just crazy to me. It's crazy. Mainly because they're not holo. So it's just a lot of the fun and a lot of the beauty of the art is taken away. Now, in Japanese, these cards have full-on holos, and they are absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. The Espeon is probably my favorite, you know, in terms of the holo and the different styles from Japanese to English. But in English, there's still really rare, cool cards. It's just really, really hard to rationalize spending that kind of money on something that's not even going to have a little holo pop off in light. So I really am wanting these cards for completing the set. And it basically, I was bidding on all these auctions. One, because the 8s seemed like, hey, if these go for a cheap price, they'll be super affordable. And two, because I'm in the home stretch for completing the Gold Star set. And I'm not saying that I'm going to do it in all 9s. I would like to do it in all 9s, but it's getting very expensive. It's adding up very quick. And, you know, I would like to buy more modern stuff. I would like to start on my other vintage goals, like first editions and shinings especially. I would really like to start going for the shinings and first edition. As well as I still haven't finished my crystal set. I still need the crystal Celebi. And even then, I'm partially considering maybe going after PSA 10s in my crystal set. There's a crystal Lugia right now on eBay for $11,000, and honestly, it doesn't look like the worst price in the world. Pretty epic card. I think that Lugia is really undervalued. Clearly not in a 10. The 10 is around the same price as the Crystal Charizard. But it's kind of interesting because the Crystal Lugia in a PSA 9 is less than half the price of a PSA 9 Charizard. I find that very interesting, how in PSA 10 they pretty much are neck and neck, but in PSA 9 they couldn't be more different in price. And, you know, all all populations aside, the Lugia is an absolutely stunning card, which is why I really would like to have one in a 10. But I don't understand why it's so much cheaper than the Charizard. Anyways, yeah, that would be a really cool card to go after. But a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff here, a lot of money spent. Wow, Falling Sunset, he really raked it in on those auctions, which is great. Hopefully that money will help his growing family. So that was cool to share with you guys. It's been a long, rough day over here in the Cyrus household, so I'm glad that I was able to get some content done. But this is also genuinely important to me. I like watching these auctions, and sometimes they come and go, and I never share them, and I never talk about them. And so hopefully, despite my technical difficulty with working with this computer early on in the video, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. You enjoyed me talking about these cards and the value behind them. And if you're considering looking at gold stars, I would not let those auctions scare you, especially if you're looking at PSA 8. Those numbers seem a little bit high to me. I feel like somebody was just bidding really hard on those because, like, especially the Umbreon, $4,000 for that PSA 8 Umbreon. Way too high, in my opinion. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. I know gold stars might not be for everybody. I would like to branch this out if I do kind of start a little series on it, on like stuff that I'm looking at, auctions that I'm looking at throughout the week. So let me know what you guys think on that. And peace out. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Thanks for watching.